Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I am a teacher, tarot and oracle card reader. I'm a singer and guitarist in the band Red Treasure, and I am a newly reinvigorated Dungeons and Dragons enthusiast, and I'm located in beautiful North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie Orlina. I am a transformational life coach and I help people shift away from negative thinking. And today I am coming to you from San Diego, California.
We want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're listening to the audio version on Spotify, CastBox, wherever you listen to podcasts, thank you so much for watching us. If you happen to be watching us on the Co-Creation Station YouTube channel, at this point we are posting a brand new episode every Monday morning. And we want to thank you so much for liking us, following us, subscribing to us, reviewing us, whatever your platform allows you to do. It's all appreciated. It all helps other people find the show. You can, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave us a comment, and we encourage you to do so. And no matter how you're listening or watching, you can always email us at cocreationstation1111@gmail.com. Each week, we start our discussion here on Co-Creation Station from a different jumping off point. And this week, I think I am providing the jumping off point because over the past week I mentioned to you, Stephanie, that the story of me running my first Dungeons and Dragons game for almost 25 years or more was quite a law of attraction, art of allowing kind of story. So I thought I would share that with you and our listeners and viewers. But first of all, welcome. It's good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too.
I timed that perfectly, like right as you got the
Well, we don't usually
water.
do that, so I was like, oh.
Well, I think I know I'm about to go on a little bit of a rant here, so I didn't want to not have you.
Oh, so here I get to speak for 60 seconds. Okay. Hi, everyone. I am here. I am a co-host.
I know some stuff. I say some stuff. Yeah, and I shouldn't go too long, but yeah, I just noticed it. I think right after that evening, which would have been last Tuesday, so about a week and a half ago now. I think right after, either the night when I got home or the morning after, I texted you and said this was a really, really incredible kind of art of allowing story. So and for those of you who have listened or watched before, I think I've been mentioning this more and more over the last few weeks, but there's a game called Dungeons and Dragons. If you don't know what it is, Google it. We don't have time to cover it here, but it's super fun. I played it when I was younger. I played it from when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, all the way up through college. Then I didn't play for a long time, but always wanted to get back into it and kept all my books and accessories and everything like that. And then some point about a year and a half ago, I started getting back into it slowly, and then I started playing regularly again last November. So I've been playing as a player again for about whatever we're at, 6 months or so. But Dungeons and Dragons is a unique game in the sense that it's not like a board game where 4 people play the game and they're all equal and they all just roll the dice and move their thing. It's a little more complicated than that, and it needs what is called, some people call it a dungeon master, some people call it a game master. But essentially, there are the people who show up to play the game like a board game, but then there's one person called the dungeon master or game master who has to run the whole game. And in D&D, basically, when you're playing, you're basically playing a fictional character, and you're taking a fictional character through this story. It's kind of like a novel or a movie. And the dungeon master is the one who sets up the whole story and tells the players what their fictional characters are experiencing. The players tell the dungeon master what their fictional character does in different situations, and then the dungeon master determines what happens to them based on their choices and things like that. It's kind of like if anybody remembers the Choose Your Own Adventure books from the 1980s, it's kind of like an expanded version of that. Anyway, so I hadn't dungeon mastered since probably the late 1990s, so over 25 years, which doesn't seem possible. And I found this really amazing gaming and tea shop in Burbank, near where I live in LA here. And it's called Geeky Teas. So free advertising for them. They're amazing. They're on Magnolia Boulevard. Um, but I had
That's a
signed
cool
up.
name. I like
Yeah,
that name.
it's a really cool space too. Like they have a store where they sell
You're
all
gonna
sorts
have to take
of
me there
games.
sometime. How
Yeah,
far is it from
absolutely.
your place?
Oh, next time you come up. Oh, it's like a 10-minute drive.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Only because I love tea, and now I'm learning more and more about D&D. So I
oh,
feel
it's
like
also a cat rescue. I keep forgetting to mention that.
OMG.
It's yeah, they have a thing called it's called Geeky Kitties or something like that, which is like they're also a cat rescue. So um, there are awesome cats walking around the whole time, and they're all super friendly, and they will come up to you, and
Oh wow.
yeah,
Oh wow. Okay.
it's amazing. Anyway, um, so I had signed up to play 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks ago now, because I found out that they do. I found the store online, and I saw how close it was to me here, and I just like
Like
it.
hell yes.
It was a Sunday, and they were going to close in a few hours, and I was like, I'm just getting in the car and driving right now. And I had seen on the website that they actually had a place where you could actually play D&D, and people got together on weeknights and Saturdays and actually played at the store, which happens at game stores all over the country, but I've never actually played that way. The playing I've been doing in the last 6 months has all been online, which is another way you can play with other people. So I asked the cashier, I was like, do you actually, I saw on the website that people play D&D here, and she's like, yep, Tuesday nights, like we have. So when I got back home, I signed up to play, and the following Tuesday night, so 2 days later, and so, I mean, already I'm in an art of allowing kind of zone here, because I don't even remember how I found the place online, but that just like popped up out of nowhere, out of
Well,
nowhere.
that just kind of backed up because
Yeah.
prior to that, right? Like before things happen, then we're in that vibrational state, right?
Right.
And then it's responding.
Yeah.
So what would you say, like what was going on? Like were you in this like chill space? Were you, because you'd been playing since November, so you were
Yeah.
already feeling good. Like that multiple times you've told me, and that has kind of escalated as well, you playing with them.
Yeah. I don't remember 100% clearly, but what most likely happened was I played with my regular online group on the Saturday, and then Sunday I was just like looking up stuff and researching stuff about D&D online, which I do. And I think that probably put me in a really awesome mood, because I love, just doing
But
stuff associated with it.
yeah, but even prior to that, so some at some point in no prior to November, you were
Ah.
allowed in,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like something happened during that
Yeah, we've
time.
talked about that before, but yeah, it was a while ago. But yeah,
And then there's just been this momentum building with D&D,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so even playing with those people, you when you first met them, you're like, these guys are so cool, like, oh my gosh. And then you've playing, and then something shifted with them, and things just got even better.
Yes. So I don't remember when the first time I played online was. It was early. I think that was fairly early on in the COVID era. So we're talking like mid 2021. Again, I think I was in a really good mood. I hadn't played D&D in very, very, very long time, and I discovered this website called Start Playing. It's not startplaying.com. It's like startplaying.games, I think. Um, and before I discovered the Start Playing website, I had sort of assumed that the only way I'd be able to play or dungeon master or do anything with D&D was I'd have to find a group of people. I did think like, oh, there's a really well-known website called meetup.com, which all sorts of people with interests like hiking or, a particular genre of fiction, get together on meetup.com, they form a group and whatever. And I think I hadn't heard that like there were D&D groups on Meetup. So I felt like either I've got to get a group of friends together, and I knew that no one in my life, present company included, had played. So I was going to have to like teach everybody, which was fine, but it was like, it was going to, it didn't seem easy to me.
Yeah.
And when I thought about going on meetup.com, that didn't, like, my thoughts were probably not that great, because I think I was thinking like, oh, it's going to be, it's going to be a process. I'm going to have to find a group. I'm going to have to find a group that's open to a new person. Like, I don't know, like how often they meet, all this
So
stuff.
some resistant thoughts there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, and then, COVID hit. So I'm also like, oh, geez, now we have to delay meeting in person. So whatever. And I don't think I even knew that people were playing what we call the tabletop version, which is where you play with other people in the way that I've been talking about. There are video games based on D&D that you can just play by yourself, like any video game. But this is actually like, if we're talking about playing the actual tabletop version of the game, I didn't know that people were connecting kind of like we do on Zoom and playing as if they were in the same space, but, online like this kind of. And so when I discovered the Start Playing website, I must have been in a good vibration when I found that, because that was something that kicked a whole bunch of stuff off. Right. And eventually, that took a while, but eventually that led me to the group that I still play with on Saturday afternoons. Yeah. But as you just mentioned, like, so when I started playing with the regular group that I'm playing with now, I still feel like the universe was brilliant on this. Like, I was having a problem.
You just said it. The universe
talking.
is brilliant on this.
Yeah. I had a problem talking and being heard. We were playing on a site called Discord, which a lot of people know about, but it's similar to Zoom, but it's geared towards people that play games, either video games or games like D&D. But it serves a lot of the same function that Zoom does. It's like a bunch of people can log in, you can all hear each other, that kind of thing. So, but I was having this problem, and I thought it was a problem with Discord, which is hilarious, because it wasn't at all. But I think it was like 2 or 3 months I was playing every week, and it felt like whenever I spoke up on Discord, if someone else was speaking, then nobody would hear me. And so a lot of times, like in the most exciting parts of the game, like when we're fighting dragons or whatever, like I'm trying to say stuff that my fictional character would do, and nobody's hearing me. Like the dungeon master isn't hearing me, the other players. And so I kind of felt like I was still having a blast. I was still having like one level of fun. But I also had times where I felt bored or kind of annoyed, because it was like, man, I just tried to tell somebody something 3 times and they still can't hear me. And I mean, they could hear me sometimes. That was the thing. It wasn't like my mic wasn't working. So what I figured out after 2 or 3 months, and I didn't figure it out, my group told me, like at one point, they said that my audio was garbled. And I said, oh, okay, well, let me put my headphones in for my Mac, my laptop. And I put my headphones in and I started talking, and they said, not only can we hear you, we can hear you clearer than we've ever heard you. Oh my God. And I realized just using the built-in microphone on my Mac laptop, yeah, that somehow Discord didn't like that as much, and it was prioritizing other people over me. But when I had my headphones on, plugged into the Mac, then everybody could hear me, whether someone was talking or not.
Heard you clearly. Interesting. Yeah.
And what that 2 or 3 month period allowed was, because they were all brand new to the game as of about 5 months before I joined. So they were still learning the game. And one of my concerns in joining the group was I was still learning the new rules, but I played when I was a kid, and I played for years. So it's like I knew my way around like the game itself very well, and I was worried that I would take over, because in a lot of situations they might not know what to do, and I'd have an idea, and I would just keep putting my idea in, and then eventually it would like get annoying because I was always the one with the ideas. So it was really great, because it that whole period where they couldn't hear me very well allowed me to slowly integrate myself into the group, where we all became equals. And by the time my microphone started working properly, we were all in that very equal dynamic. So then I definitely started having a lot more fun every Saturday, because all of a sudden my ideas and things, people could hear it, and we were negotiating, which you have to do in the game, like what are we going to decide to do? But I was like more active and more into it, because people were actually hearing what I was saying. Yeah. So that I think built some more, art of allowing
Momentum.
momentum. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love
and
that you said the universe is brilliant on this.
yeah.
Like, just,
I couldn't have planned that any better. I mean, I really feel like that was like a hyper intelligent force, like planning out exactly like we want Collin to have the maximum amount of fun in this whole experience and everybody else.
well,
So
again,
how
it
can we arrange
points
it?
out, it points out, like, because I know you do this and I do it too, is like we assign it like it's making a decision for us. And
Yeah,
it's
which
really
isn't what's
not.
happening, but yeah,
But what happened was you already had in your vortex
right,
having the most amazing time ever,
right,
and you had that concern about taking over, but
yeah,
what trumped that was that you wanted to have so much fun and
yeah,
it be equal with everyone. And then law of attraction is responding to your vibration,
yeah,
and so you allowed in this awesome experience.
yeah.
And
And
that
I
just
think,
blows my mind, because I need to remember that this is a wonderful conversation for us to be having right now, because the universe is brilliant and I'm seeing things happen, like, a little chess game, and I'm just like, what? And then when it's all said and done, I'll understand it more. But right now
hmm
I'm like, my mind's being blown
hmm
personally in my life and with other things. And so to hear this experience with you, it just kind of cements for me that the universe, law of attraction, my inner being, higher power know better than me. I don't
hmm
know everything.
hmm yeah. I also think I didn't think about this until this conversation. It's been really good for me too to sort of get more honed in on like the attraction aspect of this. Is that I think my desire not to take over partly was fear, which probably would have been a resistant, thought slash vibration. But I think it was also like it was concerning compassion and wanting to not disrupt the fun. So I mean, I think that was a positive vibration. Like I don't want to ruin this group, you know. Like
Yeah.
I want to be a good part of this group, and so I think it's possible that I sent that vibration out, and then I attracted the microphone
Everything,
thing. Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
everything is like,
yeah,
I love, Abraham talks about how, like, say, if, I want a white 2012 Lexus LS,
yeah,
and I put that in my vortex, but then at some point I'm like, yeah, but I also want it to have super low miles, or now I want
yeah,
yellow. It hears everything energetically and has put
yeah,
all of those amended changes in there.
yeah,
And so, this experience you're having, all of those amendments have been
yeah,
added, and just the synchronicity and the specification and down to the
yeah.
minutest
No, that's the thing.
detail. My mind goes like,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah. I mean, we've talked about before too about like how I still, most of us do, even when we learn this stuff back to front, like you and I have, we still have times where we doubt it or our default programming from our earlier life. Like,
yeah.
but these are the type of experiences that help me like remember this in the future because like honestly, that whole thing with the microphone. I mean, it just couldn't have happened any better way. Like I can't like with the night that my mic where that happened, where they were like, "Oh, we can hear you now, and we hear you better than we've ever heard you." Like that was the perfect. It just you had to be there in a way, but like it was the
Yeah.
perfect time for me to start being heard in that environment. And yeah, that's the sort of thing that's just like the law of attraction is a thing and it works because that's not just coincidence. That's not just like, wow, that's crazy how that worked out. I mean, that's too perfect. It was too perfectly aligned.
Divine
Yeah.
timing. Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit. So I've been playing with them for a while. So now we're sort of coming out of the pandemic, I guess. Things are opening up a little bit. And I did start to think about, could I play with some friends? Could I set up another game in Dungeon Master for friends? Online maybe, because I have friends all over the country, so it's like, well, that would probably be better done on Discord or Zoom or something like that. And and then I was like, oh, or maybe if I could get enough of my friends, here in Los Angeles together, like maybe they could come over or something, which anybody who lives in Los Angeles and has friends here, it's like we're all just crazy, busy workaholic people, and it's really challenging to get us all together at a particular time. But I think I was just having a ton of fun on the Saturday group, and I was thinking about like how does this expand in my life? Like I'd really like to start dungeon mastering again. I really enjoy that. It's a big responsibility. You have a lot more work to do, to do than the other players. Because if you're playing, you just show up and just react. The dungeon master has to like either create the story or buy a book that has a story in it, read it, and like guide the players through it or whatever. But I've never perceived that as work. It's always just been super fun play, really. Remind me about the George Bernard Shaw quote before we close the episode too. So I think I was in a really good vibration. I probably had played the day before on Saturday, and then on this particular Sunday, I was like doing research on things as I do.
The background noise, you messing with the box or whatever.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Disturbing.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So I was doing research online on the following day, on Sunday, on various D&D things, and I came across, the website for the store, the Geeky Teas in Burbank, and I saw that it was closing in a few hours. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll just get in Sunday. I don't have anything to do. I'll just drive over, and I signed up to play. On the website. After visiting the store, I signed up. I went home, went on the website, and signed up to play. And one of the problems was when I looked on, and again, this is sort of like, if you understand, like I'm having a super good time, having lots of fun, and my desire is to dungeon master. But I knew this was like a new place and new people, so I was like, well, I don't want to dungeon master right away. I'd like to play a few times and get used to people, and then maybe, I can talk them into me dungeon mastering, or maybe there'll be an opportunity. So when I get home to sign up to play for the first time, part of the problem is there's 3 D&D sessions for 2 days later on the website, and they're all full for players. Like they have 3 dungeon masters, and I think you have 6 players in each group. So each one of the 3 sessions has all 6 people already signed up. And they have a wait list you can go on for all 3 of them, but that's all I could do, is I could be on the wait list for all 3. So I found a way to contact the organizer through the website, and I said, hey, like, are you guys in need of dungeon masters? Because I'm trying to play for the first time, and I got like there's all that's left for 2 days from now is wait lists. And Manny, who's the guy who runs the D&D stuff for that store, says, yeah, actually, we're in desperate need of dungeon masters. He's like, could you do it this Tuesday night? And I was like, no. And anybody who is a dungeon master knows that would be a Herculean effort, especially if you have other things you have to do in your life. But I said, but I can try to get ready to dungeon master for 1 week from tonight, 1 week from Tuesday. And he was like, yeah, that's great. That's cool. And he sort of guided me through their process or whatever. And then he usually doesn't dungeon master. He's usually more of an administrator guy who walks around on Tuesday nights and kind of makes sure everything's happening the way it needs to. But because there were so many people on all 3 waiting lists, he decided to dungeon master an additional session. So I got to play 2 days later I played cool. D&D in person, live and in person with people for the first time since the mid to late 90s. And the guy who runs the whole thing there was the dungeon master. So I played and he's the dungeon master.
That's
so
pretty sweet.
I got to see like from the dude who runs it, like what the deal is there. And so, yeah, but at that point, like as soon as that was over, I was signed up. I talked to him there about it and got everything cleared up. And then I gave him the information he needed to put on the website. And I think I texted you like the next morning at like 9 a.m. on the website for Geeky Teas. They had me. It was like this official looking thing of like, here's this session on Tuesday. The dungeon master is Collin Daniels Worster, and he will be running this adventure at this time. And it was so official looking. I was like, oh, it was like one of those things where you you volunteer to do something, but it's not real for you, and then you see
Yeah,
it, like
yeah.
something like
And
that,
you're
and you're
like,
like, oh, this
whoa,
this is actually happening, like,
this is the real deal.
and my session of 6 people filled up like immediate, like I think I checked back the next day, so that would just be like Wednesday. And I was like, oh, we probably don't, people may not have seen the listing yet. And it was already full. There was always 6 people signed up. And I was like, oh, this is really happening. Okay. Okay. Um, and so literally, so
Were
7 days after,
you excited, nervous, both? Like
all of
what
it,
was,
all
yeah,
of
I
it.
was gonna say, usually there is like a
Yeah.
multitude of emotions, right? When it's something we want.
Yeah. Again, I feel it's great. It's fantastic that I played for 6 months online
Mm.
before dungeon mastering. I think I probably could have done it 6 months earlier, but it's one of those things that like it was perfectly timed. Like I was more ready to do it. You know, when it actually happened than if I had gotten my wish immediately, in early 2021, where I was like, I want to, or 2020, whenever that was. Like, I want to play D&D again. I want Dungeon Master. Um, so, so now I'm dungeon mastering for the first time since the mid to late 90s. So I haven't dungeon mastered a D&D game since like the mid, online or anywhere else. I haven't done it. And, I go to the shop, and yeah, I would say I was nervous. The thing I'm most nervous about, and we don't have to get too deep into this, but um, there is a whole side story of when I was younger and was playing D&D. I had a friend who was just a stickler for the rules of the game, and in my humble opinion, he definitely reached a point after we'd been playing for a while where following the rules strictly became more important than fun.
Mm.
And I really felt like that was not the way I wanted to go. Like, this is a game. It should always be fun. Like it's one of those things. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. But you do need to have some familiarity with the rules, and there's a lot of rules. And I have ADD, and I'm not the greatest reader. Like especially like long books. I read articles online all the time, and I read emails, obviously, and things like that. But like long books, like big novels or big, textbooks or things, are just not. My brain just doesn't want to dive into those things, no matter how much I might be interested in the topic. And so my one concern was that even though I've been playing the new edition of the rules for 6 months, I still didn't know them like back to front. And those were the thoughts of resistance that did come up before in the week of. It was like, oh, what if like,
Yeah.
we get to a point, it's obvious I don't know what the rule is. I have to look it up, and then everybody sees, because I didn't know these people. Like I didn't know them at all. So it's like there was a little bit of that. But the good news is, and I attribute a lot of this to the coaching that I got from you when I was your coaching client, because
And your other coach.
and my other coach Ella, who's
Yes.
also amazing. Because with both of you, I worked on my thinking and replacing negative thoughts and negative beliefs with positive thoughts and positive beliefs. And so when I had that thought of like, oh, what if me not knowing the rules well enough is a problem? I like immediately had this thing of like, dude, it's a game. Like, we're not sending people to the moon. We're not saving lives. Like, this is just like, who cares? Like, even if 6 people show up and they're jerks and they hate that I don't know the rules, whatever. It was 4 hours. It's over. I'll go play somewhere else, or whatever. Like it just doesn't matter. And I think I really felt like my resistance going away. When those thoughts would come up, I could really just be like, oh, this is going to be fun. Like, as long as I just like let go and have fun, like stuff like that won't matter, probably. And so I went, and first of all, the 6 people that showed up were, and this is very common throughout the D&D community. Now I know that now that I'm getting more familiar with it. They were just the kindest, sweetest, friendliest people on earth, and they all had like their own unique, clever sense of humor and their own unique sense of creativity. And we just had an absolute total blast. Like all
Sounds
7
like
of us.
you.
I do all right.
You
But
attracted like-minded people.
yeah, yeah, and it was a really good mix too. I mean, and it's interesting because like there was one person there that had been playing for a very long time and had been playing the new rules that came out in 2014 for a long time. And rather than be a problem, he was a gigantic help to me because if I didn't know the rules, he knew the rule. Like, and he helped. Like, it wasn't like an antagonistic thing that my resistance thought had presented it as.
Yeah.
It was like my not knowing that particular rule that well was an opportunity for him to help and for the two of us together to have more fun.
And I think too that when we're in and near the vortex,
Mm-hmm.
like that supersedes
Yeah,
those fear thoughts or the resistance or yeah, it's
for sure.
pretty brilliant.
Yeah. But we had somebody that had only been playing for 2 months. We had somebody who'd been playing since February, which would have been 3 months or something like that. And I had somebody who it was their first time playing Dungeons and Dragons ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And
awesome.
It was
guys
really
had
cool.
A nice little mixture, huh?
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And yeah, it was really incredible. And
each one of them attracted the other.
yeah.
Like everyone, like you're having your own experience and your own story, and each one of them is having their own as well.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
And the other thing too is that I told you this made me choke up when I first remembered it. Was that in the however long that was, I don't recall the exact time the last time I played D&D, but it was somewhere like 95, 96, 97, somewhere in there. In that time between then and when I first played my first online game through the Start Playing website, which was I think 2020, 2021, that gap, I not all the time, but I definitely had thoughts of like, man, I really wish I could play D&D. Like, why don't I get my books out and just do some stuff on my own? Or why don't I, ask my friends or whatever? And then I would sometimes have these guilty thoughts like, oh man, like I really would love to play and I'm not allowing myself to play. And I would sort of beat myself up for that a little bit. And then I would also like kind of, are we done? That's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for
we usually set a 30-minute timer. I wasn't even paying attention. All of a sudden, I'm like, what's that? I'm like, oh shoot, that's my timer. I'm sorry.
No, it's good actually. I should wrap up my thing here, but I'm almost done. But that whole time period, I was every now and then I would have this thought of like a shame kind of thought or guilt kind of thought or beating myself up about like, this is something I want to do for fun. I used to do it for fun. I gave it up. I still to this day don't. We could probably do a whole episode, not of this podcast, but some other podcasts of like, well, why did I not do it for so long? But the thing that's been incredible. So now I just dungeon mastered my second time a couple nights ago here. And we had even more fun this past time. We had a couple of other people.
Better and better.
Yeah. It really, I mean, you can actually sort of feel it, like, because this is the thing I didn't tell you in friend time, was that the Geeky Tea store has a bunch of different places where you can play games. But the coolest place is this one room that's just for one game because it's only big enough to hold about 8 people around one table. And they've got it made up like the throne room of a castle.
Oh!
Yeah. And I didn't know this. I'd seen it through because it's part of it, there's got a glass, big window where you can see in from the outside. But what I couldn't see until I actually got into this room was they also have like they just have all sorts of stuff you can use to help yourself, to help play. All sorts of accessories and stuff, which normally you'd have to bring your own. So the first week that I played and the first week I dungeon mastered, we were in this big group room where there's multiple tables and there are people playing D&D and people playing other games. And it was super fun, but it was a little challenging because sometimes it was hard to hear people because you'd have loud people at the other
Sure.
tables and stuff. And I thought, it's so funny, when I saw the throne room, I just thought, oh, you probably have to like be a big deal. You know, you have to establish yourself before they give you the throne room.
Yeah.
And I walked in 2 nights ago with my stuff, and I was all ready to go to the back room where I'd been 2 times before. And the cashier said, "Oh, tonight you're in the throne room." And I was like, what? And I mean, and this gets even crazier. So I was like over the moon, you know. And so I go in and I'm setting up, and we're in the throne room. Like all the chairs are like, you know, like the Game of Thrones kind of chairs that, you know, the queen and king would sit in.
What's the table like? Does it match that?
It's I mean it's it's like a gigantic, thick wooden table,
Okay,
you know.
cool.
But yeah, and they had all kinds of stuff. And then, as it so happened, I brought a lot of stuff to set up the little scene for people because we use little figures. I usually have one by my desk, but for some of the game, you use little figures for your fictional characters so you can tell where everybody is in the particular scene or scenario, whatever. And for most of this session, the fictional characters they didn't know this at the start, but they were going to be on a ship crossing this like nearly frozen lake. And a whole bunch of crazy stuff happens while they're on the ship. And I had brought a whole bunch of stuff, but I didn't have a ship. Like, I didn't have a little ship.
Yeah.
And we started playing, and when I told them there was a ship, and they basically figured out they had to get on it and use it to get to the next thing, one of the people who played said, "Oh, they have a ship here at the store that you can use." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I played here a couple months ago, and like, the dungeon master had a ship, and he said it was from the place." He's like, "I think it's just in another room. I can go find it." And I was like, "Okay." And he comes back, and I should text you the photo that I took of the ship. Like, it was the perfect size. It's like all 7 of we had 7 people playing 2 nights ago. All 7 of the little figures fit in the ship perfectly. And it actually let me like move the ship across the table as they did their voyage, you know? It was crazy. It was so crazy fun. And so I mean, it's one of those things that just keeps expanding. The final thing I'll say is, because this is another, you know, very strong law of attraction, art of allowing thing, and I hope I'll keep the person's name out of it, but I think she'd be okay with me telling it. One of the players who was there both weeks that I dungeon mastered, I had done this thing 2 nights ago where in the novel, or whatever you want to call it, we call it an adventure or a module, but it's the story that you play that night, you know, the beginning and middle and end of what happens for you and your fictional characters. There's a point where the characters meet some musicians, and this is set in like a, you know, Middle Ages, medieval sort of time. It's not really Earth, but it's set in sort of what we experienced on Earth as medieval times. So they're not like a rock band, but they have like a hammer dulcimer and like a drum and, you know, something else. And in the adventure, the printed version, it just says, "Oh, just tell the players that they hear music." And as you know, I'm a musician, so I'm like, I'm not just gonna say they hear music. Like, I'm gonna figure this out, like how to do this. So I brought my boombox that's right here on my desk, and there's a bunch of people who have translated like well-known, popular modern songs into medieval sounding songs, only using medieval type instruments like a hammer dulcimer and a flute and all that sort of stuff. So I had 4 songs prepared to play at different points in the story that I played for them, which they loved. But one of them was there was a romantic theme to one scenario, and so I found somebody played "What Is Love" by Hathaway, which is people may or may not remember it, but it became famous for the At the Roxy Saturday Night Live sketch where the Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan were the guys in the suits, the lame guys in the suits that would go like. And I found this medieval version of that, and so in the little romantic scene, I played that, and everybody laughed. Everybody thought it was hilarious. But the woman that played both weeks, she said her story is incredible in terms of how she got in the game. She literally went to the store one night to play a board game, and she played the board game, but there was somebody at another table playing D&D, and they were having so much fun that she asked somebody, she's like, what is that game? And they're like, oh, that's Dungeons and Dragons. She's like, what is it? And they're like, well, you kind of have to play to figure it out. Like, it's a lot to explain. And so she literally, like, the universe just, like, her attraction and the universe just worked together. She didn't even know she was going to be playing D&D. But I wrote to her afterwards. I emailed her after the session and just said, I had a really fun time playing with you, and I'm so glad you're there and everything. And she said, when you played the medieval version of, What is Love by Hathaway, she's like, it was one of my favorite songs from earlier in my life. And like, anytime I hear that song randomly, I feel like it's a sign from the universe, like I'm in the right place doing the right thing. And she's like, I had a ton of fun both nights, but she's like, when you played that song, it's like, oh, she got this like really deep feeling of like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. I'm in the right place in my life. And I just was like, oh man. So it's not just me.
Major chills up my thighs.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just one of a billion trillion stories on Mother Earth of every single one of us, just like art of allowing.
Yeah, but what's really apparent to me is that I've had very little resistance. And the resistance that has come up, it's kind of like I described before. I've seen the thoughts come up, but then like I have a positive thought, and the fun and the joy that the game brings me like cancels out the resistance very quickly.
And that's what happens, is that when we're in the vortex, those lower vibrational thoughts, sometimes I can't even think of them.
Yeah.
And then if they do pop up, like you said, they're just like, boing, they just like bounce right off the energy that I'm projecting out.
Yeah.
But when I'm in that lower vibration, then it's like glumming on. It's like gum. I can't get it off of me.
Oh, and I can't believe I remember this, but the George Bernard Shaw quote, I found this at the because I also went to the LA gaming convention over the weekend. That's a whole other story. But on one of the merchants' tables that was there selling gaming stuff, I saw this quote by George Bernard Shaw, which I had never seen before, and I was like, "Oh my God, I've got to tell Stephanie about that." Because it's just like it just so well encapsulates. It's the the quote is, "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing."
Yep, I love that quote. Absolutely.
I had never heard that before. That blew my mind. Blew my mind.
Yeah, I always say that. It's like, people are like, you're like, you seem 10 or 15 years younger than you are, and that's like, that's my joy. And it's like, I'm really in touch with my little girl mostly. And I think, and I know people who are like, in their 70s and 80s, and when they tell me their age, I'm blown away because they act so much younger.
Yeah.
And it is a mindset. It's an energy vibration. Like, stop doing what you love. We just shrivel up and die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really powerful for me to see that, because at the convention, I shot a couple of videos on my phone and sent them to you at your request, which I'm glad you asked me to do that. But it was just like, oh my God, these are all adults. Like, and so many people, like, I'm 51, and like so many people were in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Like, it was all grown-ups. But like the whole setup at the LAX Hilton was all about playing games and having fun. And the one video I sent you when I walked through the board gaming and wargaming hall, which was just people playing things that actually have a board. I mean, that room, it was like the grand ballroom of the LAX Hilton. And it was just like table after table after table after table of like 4, 5, 6 grown-ups like playing games, everybody laughing, everybody smiling, everybody like rolling dice and moving little people and like just having the time of their lives. Yeah. And I just was like, it almost felt like when I walked into that room, it was a little bit like heaven on earth kind of thing of like, if we were all in our better selves all the time, like this is what it would be like. Like everybody would just be like getting together, like, oh, you guys are playing a game, let me play. Like that'd be awesome, you know.
Oh, like I just had this visual of when I was sharing a couple, I think it was the last episode, about having that experience, that dream of where it was what I thought it would be like to have a near-death experience. And
Hmm.
I'm like, it's just like it is here, but I'm just somewhere else and we're with friends. And when you
Yeah,
said that, I'm like, Frank, that's what it's like. It's like,
yeah, yeah,
that's what it's like when we transition. It's just like,
yeah,
have it on. It's just like
yeah,
total bliss. Oh,
yeah. Cool.
that was great.
Well, thank you so much for listening. I'm glad you did get some words in, but I know you were listening a lot during this episode, Stephanie. So thank
It
you.
was great. I loved it. It's just a great reminder to me that, yeah, the universe, what was it? The universe is brilliant at this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as we like one of our episodes past episodes I really love is I think the title of it is something like "Stay Out of the Universe's Control Room,"
Yeah.
and that whole discussion. If you are listening and or watching and you haven't heard or seen that episode, please go find it. I think it's somewhere deep into season 2, because that's really like, yeah, like if we just stay out of the way, if we just let go of those resistant thoughts, like we will naturally attract the timing, the order, the stuff, the money, the people, all that stuff will just naturally happen. It's like the thing that most keeps stuff at bay is us thinking that we have to figure it out with our logical mind, and like it's up to us, and if we can't figure it out, then it won't happen, blah blah blah, or like we don't deserve it because of this, or it can't happen because of this, or whatever.
Or
Like if you
fear that
just,
it's not going to happen, fear that I'm
yeah,
not going to get it, and then
yeah,
that just blocks it as well.
yeah.
It's not that it's not there, it's just that I'm blocking it.
Yeah. And it's just like, shut up, have fun, and be happy, and your life will be amazing. Like, honestly, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
get very complicated. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching and listening. We really appreciate it. We want to thank you if you're listening to the audio version on Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. And thank you so much to those of you who watched us on our YouTube channel here. Please help spread the word. Liking, following, subscribing, and reviewing us all helps us. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. Please comment if you're watching us on YouTube, and anyone can always send us an email at cocreationstation1111@gmail.com. And if people want to find you on the interweb, Stephanie, where can they do so?
I'd love to hear from you. Let's chat. www.powerinjoy.com, POWERINJOY, and same on Instagram.
All right, and you can always find me, as long as it's not 100 years in the future, on Instagram at Collin_Daniels_Worster. Collin has 2 L's, and Worster is WORSTER. And I also launched my new D&D themed YouTube channel this week with my first video. It's called The Gentle Dungeon Master. So if you want to look up The Gentle DM on YouTube, I'll probably put the links in this video as well, so you can
Absolutely.
check that out. If you happen to be interested by any of the D&D talk that has happened here, you can find out more over there. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening and or watching. We wish all of you a very fun-filled, happy week full of play and mirth. And we'll see you next time on Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.
Bye.